I always prided myself on being a supportive husband, especially when it came to my wife, Amelia. She had been working tirelessly at her new job for the past year, putting in long hours and sacrificing weekends to climb the corporate ladder. I admired her ambition and commitment. At home, I did my part as well, managing the household and making sure she had a peaceful environment to return to each evening. I would often compliment her, telling her how proud I was of her hard work. One evening, we had some friends over, and the conversation turned to how much Amelia had been working lately. I casually mentioned how impressive it was, but that I also missed the old days when we used to go out and have fun together. That night, Amelia insisted she was too tired to join me at the bar, even though it was a Friday, and I thought it would be a good chance for us to unwind. So, I went out with some old college friends, enjoying the night, but Amelia's absence lingered on my mind. After a few drinks, I bumped into a familiar face at the bar, Charlotte, an old colleague who had worked with me years ago. She was lively and animated, and we ended up chatting for a while. During our conversation, she mentioned seeing Amelia at a happy hour event just a couple of days ago. I raised an eyebrow, a little confused. Amelia had told me she was at work late that night. Charlotte went on to describe how Amelia had seemed unusually happy, even a little too cheerful for someone who'd been working nonstop. At first, I shrugged it off. People say all sorts of things at bars, right? But something didn't sit right. A nagging feeling followed me home, and I couldn't shake the thought that maybe Amelia had been hiding something. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like something was off. Over the next few days, I began to notice subtle changes in Amelia. She was constantly texting and making secretive phone calls, something I hadn't seen before. I couldn't help but feel the distance between us growing. There were even nights when she came home much later than usual, with no real explanation, just an excuse about work or last-minute meetings. The more I observed, the more I felt like I was losing her. One evening, I decided to follow her. I wasn't proud of it, but my suspicion was growing. I tailed her from the office, and to my shock, she didn't head straight home. Instead, she parked in a secluded lot near a trendy part of town. I watched from a distance as she entered a bar. The lights were dim, and the place was packed with people. My heart raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. I waited for what felt like hours before finally gathering the courage to step inside. When I walked in, I spotted her immediately, sitting at the bar with a man I didn't recognize. They were laughing, clearly at ease with one another. There was no denying it. She was more than just working late. She was spending time with someone else. I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak wash over me. The woman I had praised for her hard work, the one I had supported, had been keeping a secret from me. She wasn't just working late nights. She was seeing someone else. I stood frozen for a moment before retreating to the exit. I didn't know what to do next. I loved her, but this felt like a betrayal in the worst possible way. The worst part wasn't the affair itself, but the realization that all my praise and support had been used to cover up the truth. I had believed in her so completely, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered trust. That night at the bar wasn't just an eye-opening experience. It was a beginning of the end for us. The days that followed felt like a blur. I couldn't bring myself to confront Amelia right away. Part of me still wanted to believe there had to be some mistake, some misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew what I had seen, and my mind kept replaying that image of her with another man, laughing as if nothing was wrong. The tension in the house grew palpable. Amelia continued to act like nothing had changed, going about her usual routine. But I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every time I saw her, I felt the weight of what I knew hanging over us. One evening, after she had returned from another late meeting, I finally decided it was time to talk. She walked in, her usual smile on her face, but I didn't feel the warmth I once did. I was angry, confused, and heartbroken. "Amelia, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes darted nervously, but she nodded. Of course. What's going on? I stared at her, gathering my thoughts, then finally said, I saw you the other night. Her expression shifted instantly, but she tried to keep her composure. What do you mean? You were at the bar, with someone else. A man, not working, Amelia. You were there with him, and it didn't look like a business meeting. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to say something but closed it again, as if weighing her words. I could see the guilt in her eyes. She wasn't denying it. I can explain, she finally whispered. I couldn't sit still anymore. Explain? You've been lying to me for months, Amelia. You've been hiding this from me, telling me it was work when it was never just work. Who is he? Tears welled up in her eyes, and I almost felt sorry for her. But the anger inside me stopped me from feeling pity. She sat down slowly on the couch, running her hands through her hair. It's not what you think, honestly. I crossed my arms, waiting for the truth. The guy you saw, his name is Josh. He's a colleague. We started working together on a big project, and we've gotten really close. But nothing happened between us, I swear. I promise. It's not an affair, she said, her voice shaking. But I wasn't buying it. So what was all the secrecy? The late nights? The texts? You didn't think I'd notice? And why didn't you just tell me about him? Amelia's face fell, and I could see the guilt eating at her. I didn't want you to think I was prioritizing him over you. I was working so hard to prove myself at work, and I was afraid you wouldn't understand. Josh, he was just someone I leaned on when I needed support. But I swear, it wasn't like you're thinking. I wanted to believe her. Part of me really did. But everything about her behavior screamed that there was more to the story than she was letting on. The hurt, I felt, wasn't just from her being with another man. It was from the years of trust and support I had invested in her, only to find out that she had been hiding pieces of herself from me all along. She had been so caught up in her own success, her own ambitions, that she had allowed the walls between us to grow thicker and thicker. Amelia, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. This isn't about the project or about work. It's about the lies, about the fact that you didn't come to me when you were struggling, when you were spending all this time with someone else. I said, my voice breaking. She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. I know I've messed up. I was just so caught up in everything. But I swear, I never meant to hurt you. I stood there for a long moment, looking at her, this woman I had once admired and praised for her work ethic and dedication. But now, all I felt was a deep ache. The love I had for her was still there, but it was clouded by the betrayal. I don't know what to do, Amelia, I said quietly. I thought you were the one I could count on, but now, I'm not sure who you are anymore. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with regret. Please don't give up on me. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. The cracks in our relationship had been exposed, and though she was asking for another chance, a part of me had already moved on. I didn't know what the future held, but I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. We had built so much together, but sometimes even the strongest foundations could crumble under the weight of too many lies. The night at the bar had exposed her secret, but it had also exposed the truth about our relationship. It was no longer enough to just praise her hard work. What we needed now was honesty, trust, and a love that wasn't just built on empty promises. I wasn't sure we could ever get back to that place, but it was clear now that we couldn't go forward without facing the truth. The days that followed were filled with silence. Amelia and I barely spoke, the tension in the air thick and suffocating. Every conversation felt forced, every glance laden with unspoken words. It became clear that the trust between us had been shattered, and no amount of apologies or explanations could put it back together. I tried to carry on with my daily routine, but nothing felt the same. I would sit at work, lost in my thoughts, replaying the scenes of that night in the bar over and over again. Each time, I was reminded of how naive I had been, How I had built my entire world around the idea of Amelia's dedication, of our shared dreams and future. Yet now, I felt like I was living in a lie. Amelia, on the other hand, seemed to be struggling with her own guilt. She would try to engage me in conversations, attempting to show that she was sorry. But every time, I felt like I was sinking deeper into the abyss of disappointment. It wasn't just the affair or whatever she called it. It was the fact that she had kept this part of her life hidden for so long. One evening, after another long day of avoiding each other, she finally broke the silence. I know I've hurt you, and I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try to fix things, to make up for what I've done. I looked at her, unsure of what to say. My heart ached for the woman I had once adored, but my mind was clouded with doubt. Amelia, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. It's not just about Josh. It's about the lies, the secrecy. You've kept so much from me. She nodded, her face pale with the weight of what I was saying. I understand, but I'm telling you now, everything between me and him is over. I know it's going to take time, but I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust. But I wasn't sure if I could. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Part of me longed to return to the days when we were happy, when everything felt right. But another part of me knew that what we had wasn't the same anymore. It had been tainted by betrayal, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't wash that away. I took a deep breath and ran my fingers through my hair. Amelia, I don't know if I can move past this. I don't know if I can go back to the way things were. Tears filled her eyes as she took a step toward me. Please don't say that. I'll change. I swear. You're the most important thing in my life. I don't want to lose you. I looked at her, my heart heavy with indecision. I wanted to believe in her, but I knew that trusting her again would take more than just words. It would take time, and even then, I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her. Over the next few weeks, we tried. We tried to go back to normal, to fix the cracks in our relationship, but it never felt the same. The intimacy we once shared was gone, replaced by awkwardness and suspicion. I would often catch her looking at her phone, and I would wonder if she was hiding something else from me. I tried to bury those thoughts, but they kept resurfacing, like a constant shadow hanging over us. Finally, after a particularly tense evening, I realized something that I couldn't ignore anymore. Our relationship was not the same. It wasn't just the affair that had broken us. It was a realization that we had both drifted apart in ways we hadn't acknowledged until now. Amelia had been so consumed by her work, her ambitions, and the secret she had been keeping that she had forgotten what we were to each other. And I had been so blinded by my need to support her, to praise her, that I had failed to see how much we were both changing. I knew it was time for a hard decision. We needed to either confront the truth fully or let go. Amelia, I said one evening, my voice quieter than usual, I think we need some time apart. Her eyes widened in surprise, then quickly filled with tears. What? You can't mean that. I've tried everything. I've apologized. I've been honest with you. I know, I interrupted, feeling a lump form in my throat. But this isn't just about you and Josh anymore. It's about us, about what we've become. I can't keep pretending that things are okay when they're not. I need space to figure things out. She stood there, frozen, her hands trembling. So, what now? You're leaving me? I shook my head. I don't know. I need time to think. I can't keep going like this. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something else in her eyes. Fear, maybe regret, but it didn't change anything. I had made up my mind. In the days that followed, we barely spoke. She tried to call, to text, but I didn't respond. The silence between us was suffocating, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to be alone, to figure out who I was without her. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything that came before and after. The praise I had given her had been genuine, but it had also been one-sided. I had supported her without ever asking for anything in return, without realizing how much of myself I had neglected. Eventually, we sat down to talk one last time. Amelia's face was tear-streaked, her voice soft but desperate. I don't want to lose you. Please, don't leave me like this. I don't know if I can forgive you, Amelia. And I don't know if we can go back to what we were. But I know I need to find myself again first, I said, my voice steady. I'm not giving up, but I need space. And I think we both do. That night, we parted ways, not with anger, but with a deep sense of loss. I walked away not knowing what the future held for us, but with the understanding that I needed to rebuild myself before I could even think about rebuilding what we had. In time, I learned that sometimes the hardest thing is letting go, especially when you still care deeply for someone. But in the end, it was the only way to truly find myself again.